17 years ago, on a rain-slicked November night in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, 34-year-old Joyce Hall kissed her teenage daughter goodbye over the phone and walked into the darkness, never to be seen again. Her abandoned Honda Civic was discovered hours later on Highway 65, driver's door hanging open like a question mark against the Arkansas pines. Police suspected foul play immediately. Her purse sat untouched on the passenger seat, $47 in tip money still folded neatly inside, but with no witnesses, no blood, and 207's limited forensic capabilities, the investigation stalled. For 17 years, daughter Kayla lit a candle every night, waiting. Then genealogical DNA testing revealed the unthinkable truth. Before we dive into this shocking story, let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe. November 15, 2007, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. The autumn air carries the scent of burning leaves as temperatures drop to 42 degrees. Main Street's vintage lampposts cast amber pools of light on wet pavement from an earlier drizzle that left the asphalt gleaming like black mirrors. The Dixie Diner's neon sign flickers intermittently, its red glow reflecting off puddles in the gravel parking lot, where pickup trucks and worn sedans sit scattered like sleeping giants. Inside the diner, the familiar sounds of clinking dishes and Patsy Cline from the old Wurlitzer jukebox fill the warm interior. The air hangs thick with the aroma of fresh coffee, bacon grease, and the lingering sweetness of homemade apple pie. Fluorescent lights buzz softly overhead, casting everything in that particular diner glow that makes even strangers feel like family. Joyce Hall moves between the red vinyl booths with practiced efficiency, her blonde ponytail swaying as she refills coffee cups and remembers everyone's usual order without writing anything down. At 34, she's worked these tables for 7 years, long enough to know that Tom Bradley takes his coffee black with exactly 2 sugars, that Mrs. Patterson always orders the meatloaf on Thursdays, and that Deputy Marcus Williams stops by every night shift for a slice of whatever pie is left. "More coffee, hon?" Joyce asks the trucker in booth 3, her Arkansas drawl warm as the liquid she pours. She moves with the grace of someone who's found her rhythm in life, despite the challenges. Single motherhood isn't easy in a town of 8,000, but Joyce has made it work through sheer determination and the kind of work ethic that keeps the Dixie Diner running like clockwork. At home, 16-year-old Kayla sits at their small kitchen table in the apartment above Gentry's Pharmacy, surrounded by geometry homework and the soft glow of the television playing in the background. The apartment is modest but spotless, Joyce's handiwork evident in the handmade curtains, the carefully arranged family photos, and Kayla's honor roll certificates displayed proudly on the refrigerator. Friday night means their traditional movie rental and popcorn, something Joyce promised they'd do after her shift ends. Back at the diner, Joyce glances at the clock above the grill. 10:45 p.m. The evening crowd has thinned to just Tom Bradley, finishing his coffee at the counter, and a couple sharing pie in the back booth. She begins her closing routine, wiping down tables, counting tips, and preparing to head home to the daughter who means everything to her. Joyce had raised Kayla alone since her divorce 5 years prior, when Mike Hall decided small-town life wasn't for him and headed to Little Rock for what he called better opportunities. The split was amicable enough, but it left Joyce shouldering the responsibility of parenthood alone. She'd risen to the challenge, working double shifts when necessary, attending every parent-teacher conference, every basketball game, every school play. "Joyce, you heading out soon?" Tom Bradley asks, sliding his empty cup across the counter. He's been coming to the Dixie Diner since before Joyce started working there, and he's developed a protective fondness for the young mother who always remembers to ask about his grandson's baseball games. "Just finishing up," Joyce replies, tucking $47 in crumpled bills and coins into her apron pocket. "It's been a good night, good enough to buy Kayla that winter formal dress they'd been saving for." At 11:02 p.m., Joyce picks up the phone behind the counter and dials home. The familiar sound of Kayla's voice answering on the second ring makes her smile. "20 minutes, baby. Keep the porch light on. Save me some of that leftover casserole," Joyce adds, already untying her apron. "Love you, baby girl." She hangs up and calls out to Tom Bradley, who's putting on his jacket. "Y'all drive safe now." The security camera mounted in the corner catches Joyce walking to her 1998 Honda Civic, keys jangling in the cool night air. She waves to Tom as he loads supplies into his truck, then slides behind the wheel of her car. The parking lot empties except for Joyce's Honda, and one other vehicle partially visible at the frame's edge, a detail that would haunt investigators for years to come. At 11:04 p.m., her taillights disappear into the darkness of Highway 65, those red lights the last confirmed sighting of Joyce Hall alive. The drive home should take 20 minutes along the familiar stretch of two-lane highway that cuts through dense Arkansas pine forest. It's a route Joyce has traveled thousands of times, winding through countryside so rural that cell phone coverage disappears for miles at a stretch. She could indeed drive it with her eyes closed, as she'd joked to Tom Bradley. But Joyce Hall would never make it home. The 20-minute drive that she'd made countless times would end in a mystery that would haunt Pine Bluff for the next 17 years. November 16, 2007, 12:47 a.m. The Hall apartment above Gentry's Pharmacy sits in darkness except for the glow of the television and the bright porch light that cuts through the night like a beacon. Rain begins to fall steadily, drumming against the windows with increasing intensity, each drop carrying the weight of approaching dread. Kayla Hall sits curled on the worn couch, still in her Pine Bluff High School sweatshirt, geometry homework abandoned on the coffee table. The TV plays an infomercial she isn't watching, something about kitchen knives that can cut through anything. Her eyes remain fixed on the window, watching for headlights that should have appeared 30 minutes ago. The leftover tuna casserole sits untouched on the counter, covered in foil with Joyce's favorite fork placed beside it, waiting for a woman who will never come home to eat it. Every car that passes on Main Street makes Kayla's heart jump. She recognizes the sounds of their small town, the rumble of Jimmy Peterson's modified Camaro, the distinctive diesel knock of Dr. Martinez's pickup, the quiet purr of Mrs. Chen's Toyota. But none of them is her mother's Honda Civic with its slight transmission whine that Joyce keeps meaning to fix. By 12:30 a.m., anxiety transforms into panic. Kayla calls the Dixie Diner 3 times, listening to the phone ring endlessly in the empty restaurant, before the answering machine picks up with Joyce's own voice. "You've reached the Dixie Diner. We're closed now, but we'll be serving happiness starting at 6 a.m. tomorrow." At 12:47 a.m., Kayla runs downstairs in her bare feet, pounding on Margaret Chen's door with both fists. The pharmacy owner appears in her bathrobe, hair in curlers, immediately alert when she sees the terror in Kayla's eyes. "Something's wrong," Kayla gasps, the words tumbling out between sobs. "Mom always comes home by 11:30. Always. She called at 11 and said 20 minutes, but she's not here, Mrs. Chen. She wouldn't do this. She wouldn't leave me waiting." Margaret Chen has known Joyce and Kayla for 3 years, since they moved into the upstairs apartment. She's watched Joyce work 2 jobs to make ends meet, seen her walk to work in snow rather than ask for help, witnessed the fierce love between mother and daughter. Margaret doesn't hesitate. She calls 911. Deputy Marcus Williams receives the dispatch at 1:15 a.m. and feels his stomach drop when he recognizes the address. He knows Joyce Hall from his regular stops at the Dixie Diner, knows she's the kind of mother who would never leave her daughter wondering. His headlights cut through the rain as he speeds toward town, already radioing for additional units to check Joyce's road home. Williams arrives to find Kayla pacing the apartment like a caged animal, Margaret trying unsuccessfully to convince her to sit down. The deputy's 20 years of experience tells him this isn't a case of someone staying out late or forgetting to call. Joyce Hall's absence feels wrong in ways that make his instincts scream warnings. "When did you last speak to your mother?" Williams asks gently, pulling out his notebook. 11:02, Kayla answers immediately. "She always calls before leaving work. Always." She said 20 minutes, and to keep the porch light on, she gestures toward the window where the light burns bright against the storm. Williams coordinates search efforts along Highway 65, sending units to check the route Joyce would have taken. The rain intensifies, turning the night into a black curtain that swallows flashlight beams. At 2:33 a.m., Deputy Sarah Martinez's spotlight catches the reflection of a taillight 30 feet down an embankment near mile marker 17. Got something? Martinez radios, her voice tight with tension. Silver Honda Civic, license plate matches the bolo. The car sits at an odd angle among the pine trees, driver's door hanging open like a mouth frozen mid-scream. Martinez approaches carefully, her flashlight beam revealing the interior. Joyce's purse on the passenger seat, contents undisturbed. $47 in tip money folded neatly in the side pocket. Her flip phone shows 12% battery. Keys in the ignition, engine off, gas tank 3/4 full. No sign of Joyce. No blood. No indication of struggle or violence. Just an empty car in the Arkansas darkness, raising more questions than answers. Vehicle located, Martinez reports, her voice carrying across the radio waves to a dozen officers and one terrified daughter. Driver missing. No visible signs of trauma. Requesting K-9 unit and additional personnel. Back at the apartment, Kayla refuses to leave, convinced her mother will walk through the door any moment with some perfectly reasonable explanation. She reheats the casserole at 3 a.m., setting 2 plates on the small table as if preparing for the most important dinner of her life. Margaret stays with her, brewing pot after pot of coffee that neither of them drinks, both women staring out the window at the storm that seems to be washing away their last hopes. The porch light remains on as dawn approaches, a beacon for someone who isn't coming home, while 30 feet down an embankment, Joyce Hall's empty car holds secrets that will take 17 years to unlock. November 16, 2007, 6:00 a.m., dawn breaks gray and cold over Pine Bluff as the largest search operation in Jefferson County's history begins to unfold. Pine Bluff Police Department headquarters buzzes with controlled chaos. Maps cover every available wall surface, red pins marking search grids, while yellow highlighting traces Joyce's last known route. The conference room smells of industrial coffee, dry erase markers, and the particular tension that comes with a missing person case in its critical first hours. Detective Ray Thompson, a 20-year veteran with deep lines around his eyes and a reputation for never giving up, stands before the assembled team of officers, volunteers and federal agents. Outside, November rain continues intermittently, turning search areas into muddy challenges that will hamper efforts throughout the day. 50 officers and volunteers, expanding to grid pattern Alpha through Delta, Thompson announces, his voice carrying the weight of experience and urgency. We're looking for Joyce Hall, 34, blonde hair, 5'6", last seen wearing her Dixie Diner uniform, blue shirt, black pants. Weather's not our friend, but that missing woman has a 16-year-old daughter who needs her mother home. The Pine Bluff Community Center transforms into Command Central, its basketball court filled with folding tables, supporting radio equipment, computer terminals, and detailed topographical maps. Yellow-jacketed volunteers stream through the doors, teachers, mill workers, retirees, high school students, all united by the unthinkable possibility that Joyce Hall might be lying injured somewhere in the vast Arkansas wilderness. Sheriff Janet Morrison coordinates the multi-agency response, her calm professionalism masking deep concern. In 25 years of law enforcement, she's seen missing person cases that end happily and others that haunt communities forever. Something about Joyce Hall's disappearance feels different, too clean, too mysterious, too much like someone simply vanished into thin air. By noon, the search expands dramatically. Arkansas State Police helicopters, equipped with thermal imaging cameras, circle overhead, their rotors beating steady rhythms, while pilots scan the endless canopy of pine trees. The sound echoes across Jefferson County like mechanical thunderbirds, audible to Kayla as she sits in the apartment above Gentry's pharmacy, refusing to eat, refusing to sleep, refusing to accept that her mother might not be coming home. November 17 brings more resources and more heartbreak. 200 volunteers spread across 5 square miles, their voices calling Joyce's name until they grow hoarse. Search and rescue dogs work the scent trail from Joyce's abandoned Honda, but lose it 50 yards from the vehicle, a detail that suggests Joyce may have entered another car voluntarily or otherwise. The FBI arrives on November 18, bringing additional technical resources and a fresh perspective to the investigation. Special Agent Maria Rodriguez reviews the case file with methodical precision, noting details that local officers might miss. Joyce's phone records reveal her last call to Kayla at 11:02 p.m., exactly as reported. No activity after that moment, no calls, no texts, no movement from cell towers. It's as if Joyce Hall simply ceased to exist at 11:02 p.m. on November. Mike Hall, Joyce's ex-husband, drives down from Little Rock as soon as he hears the news. Despite their divorce, he maintains genuine concern for Joyce and deep love for their daughter. Detective Thompson subjects him to a polygraph examination, standard procedure that eliminates him as a suspect, while adding another layer of complexity to the investigation. "Whatever happened between Joyce and me," Mike tells assembled reporters outside the police station, his voice breaking slightly. "She's a good mother. She wouldn't leave Kayla. Someone took her, and we need to find out who." The investigation expands to include everyone in Joyce's orbit. Dixie Diner employees submit to interviews, their statements revealing nothing more suspicious than the usual small-town gossip and workplace personalities. Regular customers provide alibis that check out under scrutiny. Co-workers describe Joyce as reliable, kind, and devoted to her daughter, exactly the kind of person who doesn't simply disappear. Divers search the Saline River despite no evidence suggesting water involvement. The methodical investigation follows every protocol, every possibility, every lead that might bring Joyce home. Anonymous tips begin flowing in. A woman matching Joyce's description seen at a Little Rock bus station, a suspicious vehicle noticed near the diner, claims from psychics and well-meaning citizens who want to help but have nothing concrete to offer. November 20 brings the most promising lead yet. An anonymous caller reports seeing lights at an abandoned hunting cabin 15 miles from where Joyce's car was found. Search teams descend on the location with high hopes and sophisticated equipment, only to discover empty beer cans, old magazines, and the crushing disappointment of another dead end. Tom Bradley organizes the merchant community's response, raising $25,000 in reward money within 48 hours. Missing person flyers multiply on every telephone pole, every storefront window, every available surface in Jefferson County. Joyce's warm smile looks out from hundreds of photographs, each one a silent plea for information, for answers, for the impossible hope that she might still be alive. But as November turns to December, and leads evaporate like morning mist, investigators face a troubling reality. They are running out of places to look and leads to follow. Late November 2007, Pine Bluff transforms from sleepy Arkansas town into the epicenter of determination and hope. The community center's basketball court abandons its usual purpose, instead hosting folding tables covered with maps, rotary phones, and desktop computers donated by local businesses. Hand-drawn Find Joyce signs appear in every storefront window along Main Street, their bright poster board colors defying the gray November sky that seems to press down on the town like a heavy blanket. The Dixie Diner reopens after a week-long closure, but it feels different now. New waitresses move through the booths where Joyce once served coffee and conversation, but regular customers still occasionally call them by Joyce's name, the muscle memory of 7 years proving difficult to break. The restaurant transforms into an unofficial volunteer coordination site, its red vinyl booths filled with people making phone calls, organizing search schedules, and maintaining the kind of hope that small communities excel at nurturing. Pastor David Williams, of First Baptist Church, emerges as the spiritual leader of the community's response. His voice carries across Pine Bluff every evening at 6 p.m., when residents gather for prayer vigils that grow larger each night. The November air rings with hymns and desperate prayers, voices lifted toward a sky that seems reluctant to provide answers. Faith means believing when we cannot see, Pastor Williams tells the assembled crowd on November 25, his breath visible in the cold air. Joyce is out there somewhere, and we will bring her home. We will not stop believing. We will not stop searching. We will not abandon hope. 500 people attend that Sunday evening vigil in Town Square, their candles flickering like stars fallen to earth. Children hold handmade signs with crayon drawings of Joyce, while teenagers organize social media campaigns on the newly popular MySpace platform. The high school cancels basketball practice so students can participate in searches, their young voices calling Joyce's name through pine forests that swallow sound and seem to mock their efforts with silence. City Councilwoman Patricia Torres coordinates with state officials, ensuring that every available resource reaches Pine Bluff. The town's modest budget strains under the weight of extended search operations, but neighboring communities contribute funds, personnel, and equipment without being asked. Arkansas demonstrates the solidarity that emerges when tragedy strikes small-town America. Tom Bradley's hardware store becomes supply headquarters for the expanding search effort. His normally orderly shelves empty as volunteers take flashlights, rope, first aid supplies, and anything else that might help locate Joyce. Tom refuses payment, his gruff exterior masking the deep affection he developed for the waitress, who always remembered to ask about his grandson's baseball games. Joyce served this community for 7 years. He tells volunteers who protest his generosity, "Now it's our turn to serve her family." Thanksgiving arrives with empty chairs across Pine Bluff. The Hall apartment remains dark except for the porch light that burns constantly. Kayla's vigil continuing, despite Margaret Chen's gentle attempts to convince her to eat, to sleep, to take care of herself. The 16-year-old has aged years in 10 days, her young face carrying the weight of uncertainty that no child should bear. December brings America's most wanted producers to Pine Bluff, their cameras and crew creating excitement and hope in equal measure. They film reenactments on Highway 65, the same stretch of road where Joyce vanished, their presence validating what the community already knows. This case deserves national attention. But national exposure brings complications alongside opportunities. 3 separate sightings in neighboring counties prove false after investigation. A woman matching Joyce's description at a Conway gas station turns out to be someone else entirely. A reported sighting at a Jonesboro restaurant leads nowhere. Each false lead raises and crushes hope in cycles that exhaust everyone involved. Local psychic Madame Zelda offers her services, creating controversy that splits the community. Some residents embrace any possibility of finding Joyce, while others view psychic involvement as desperate nonsense. Detective Thompson maintains professional skepticism, but agrees to follow up on specific claims. Joyce is near water, surrounded by metal, the psychic announces during a December session that draws both believers and skeptics. The vague prediction sends dozens of volunteers to search junkyards, boat docks, and industrial sites along the Arkansas River. Nothing materializes except exhaustion and frustration. December 15 brings an anonymous letter to the police station. Its message typed on plain paper: Joyce Hall ran away from gambling debts. Stop wasting taxpayer money. Detective Thompson investigates thoroughly, discovering that Joyce had no gambling history, no significant debts, and no reason to abandon the daughter she adored. The letter appears to be either misinformation or deliberate misdirection. Christmas approaches with no celebration planned in the Hall apartment. Kayla moves temporarily to live with Margaret Chen but returns every evening to light the porch candle, maintaining her mother's beacon with religious dedication. The ritual becomes Pine Bluff's most visible symbol of hope, a small flame refusing to surrender to the darkness that has swallowed Joyce Hall. As winter settles over Jefferson County and leads grow as cold as the December air, the community faces a harsh reality that no one wants to acknowledge. Joyce Hall has seemingly vanished without a trace. January 2008, the Pine Bluff Police Department's investigation room tells the story of a case consuming resources and sanity in equal measure. Coffee-stained reports pile high on every available surface, their manila folders thick with witness statements, forensic analyses, and follow-up interviews that lead nowhere. The whiteboard's timeline has grown complex with red strings connecting various leads, theories, and possibilities, almost all crossed out with black marker, leaving a visual representation of investigative frustration. Detective Ray Thompson shows signs of the prolonged stress that comes with high-profile unsolved cases. His usually sharp appearance has grown disheveled, his desk buried under case files that follow him home each night. The photograph of Joyce Hall smiling from the Dixie Diner's employee bulletin board has become both inspiration and torment. her warm eyes seeming to ask why she hasn't been found yet. FBI Special Agent Maria Rodriguez joins the task force permanently, bringing federal resources and a fresh perspective that local investigators hope might break the case open. Her 20 years of experience with missing persons cases provides expertise, but even she admits puzzlement at Joyce Hall's complete disappearance. In 2 decades, I've never seen someone vanish this completely without extensive planning or outside help, Rodriguez confides to Thompson during one of their late-night strategy sessions. Either Joyce Hall was taken by someone very sophisticated, or she's the unluckiest person in Arkansas history. Private investigator James Crawford enters the picture in January, hired by Joyce's family, using community donations that continue flowing in despite the passage of time. Crawford brings different methods and connections, but his investigation yields similar frustrations. He re-interviews every diner employee, every regular customer, every person who crossed paths with Joyce in her final weeks, searching for inconsistencies or overlooked details. Minor discrepancies emerge. Tom Bradley remembers Joyce leaving at 11:05 p.m. rather than 11:04. Deputy Williams recalls the rain being heavier than other witnesses reported, but each inconsistency dissolves under scrutiny. Human memory proves fallible in ways that explain minor variations without revealing sinister truths. January 20 brings polygraph examinations for 12 persons of interest, including ex-husband Mike Hall, diner owner Bill Patterson, and several regular customers who were present Joyce's final evening. Every examination yields the same result. No deception indicated. Either Joyce Hall was taken by someone completely outside her normal orbit, or the perpetrator possesses unusual ability to control physiological responses under pressure. Dr. Helen Foster, a criminal psychologist from the University of Arkansas, creates detailed offender profiles based on the evidence. Her analysis suggests someone familiar with Joyce's routine, but not necessarily part of her inner circle. Possibly a regular customer who observed her patterns, or someone who worked nearby and noticed her schedule. The profile describes an organized, patient individual who planned carefully and left nothing to chance. February arrives with ground searches resuming as snow melts, revealing previously inaccessible areas of Jefferson County's wilderness. Teams equipped with metal detectors sweep through forests, abandoned buildings, and rural properties, searching for any trace of Joyce or clues to her fate. The systematic grid searches cover hundreds of square miles, but Arkansas wilderness seems infinite when measured against one missing woman. Technical analysis of the Dixie Diner's security footage undergoes enhancement by FBI laboratories, revealing new details about the partially visible second vehicle in the parking lot. Frame-by-frame examination identifies the vehicle as a dark-colored pickup truck, but enhancement cannot reveal license plate numbers or identifying features. Investigation into the truck leads to Tom Bradley's vehicle, which has been confirmed and eliminated from suspicion multiple times. March brings the most thorough examination of Joyce's personal life that privacy laws allow. Bank records show normal spending patterns, with no large withdrawals or unusual transactions. Employment records at the Dixie Diner reveal perfect attendance. Joyce never missed a shift without calling ahead, never left early, never displayed behavior suggesting personal problems or hidden fears. Phone records from Joyce's landline and cell phone undergo analysis by federal forensic accountants, revealing absolutely nothing suspicious. Her last call to Kayla at 11:02 p.m. represents the final electronic trace of Joyce Hall's existence. After that moment, she becomes a ghost who left no digital footprint in an increasingly connected world. The investigation's thoroughness becomes both its strength and weakness. Every possible angle receives attention. Every potential lead gets followed to its conclusion. Every theory undergoes rigorous testing, but thoroughness without results creates its own problems. Case files expand to 1,200 pages without producing actionable intelligence. Mike Hall's frustration manifests in increasingly desperate theories and amateur investigation attempts that interfere with professional efforts. His genuine concern for Joyce and their daughter is obvious, but his suggestions grow more outlandish as time passes. Joyce was kidnapped by human traffickers. She witnessed something criminal and was silenced. She was mistaken for someone else and taken by accident. "You're looking at the wrong things," he insists during heated meetings with investigators. Someone took her, someone she knew and trusted. Joyce wouldn't have stopped for a stranger. By spring 2008, the Joyce Hall case has hit every conceivable investigative wall, forcing professionals to confront the possibility that without new evidence or witness testimony, Joyce might never be found. 2008-2010. Pine Bluff slowly returns to its normal rhythms, though Joyce Hall's absence creates a permanent void that changes the town's character in subtle but lasting ways. The Dixie Diner operates with new waitresses who work efficiently but lack Joyce's intuitive understanding of customer preferences and community dynamics. Regular customers occasionally slip and call the new staff by Joyce's name, creating awkward moments that highlight how deeply her disappearance has scarred the collective memory. Seasons cycle through their eternal dance, spring rains washing away winter's remnants, summer heat that makes searching difficult, autumn leaves that fall and cover any evidence that might remain, winter snow that freezes hope along with the landscape. Each season marks another period without answers, another chapter in Pine Bluff's longest-running mystery. The police station's investigation room downsizes as active cases demand resources and space. Joyce Hall's files transfer to a smaller office, boxes of evidence and reports stack in storage, but Detective Thompson keeps copies at home, unable to let go of the case that has defined the final years of his career. Kayla Hall faces her 18th birthday and high school graduation without the mother who should be beaming from the audience. Margaret Chen has become her surrogate guardian, providing stability and support, but nothing can fill the Joyce-shaped hole in Kayla's life. The young woman who once dreamed of studying art education now pursues criminal justice at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, her career path forever altered by her mother's disappearance. May 2008 brings graduation ceremonies to Pine Bluff High School. An empty chair sits reserved in the front row, decorated with white roses, and a photograph of Joyce smiling in her Dixie Diner uniform. Principal Richardson mentions Joyce during his remarks, his voice breaking slightly as he speaks about the missing woman who never missed a parent-teacher conference or school event. Kayla walks across the stage to receive her diploma, scanning the audience for the face that will never be there. The community applauds louder and longer than usual, their support evident but insufficient to ease the pain of celebrating life's milestones without the person who matters most. August 2008 marks a grim anniversary. The Joyce Hall case officially receives cold case classification, though police emphasize it remains open and active. New detective Lisa Park inherits the file from the retiring Thompson, bringing fresh eyes but no new leads to a mystery that has consumed investigative resources for 9 months. September 2008 finds Kayla beginning college classes, her criminal justice textbooks filled with highlighter marks and margin notes as she studies the science of finding missing persons. Her professors quickly recognize her personal connection to the subject matter, offering additional support while respecting her privacy. She excels academically but struggles socially, finding it difficult to form connections when her defining characteristic is being the girl whose mother disappeared. November 2008 brings the first anniversary of Joyce's disappearance, observed with a candlelight vigil that draws fewer participants than previous gatherings, but retains its emotional intensity. Pastor Williams leads prayers while community members share memories of Joyce, their stories painting a portrait of a woman whose impact exceeded what anyone realized while she was present. Kayla speaks publicly for the first time since her mother's disappearance, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "Mom always said that hope is the last thing to die," she tells the assembled crowd. "I'm not ready to let it die yet. Somewhere out there, someone knows what happened. Someone has answers. I'll keep that porch light burning until they find the courage to come forward." The apartment above Gentry's pharmacy remains unchanged, except for the accumulation of dust and time. Kayla maintains her mother's bedroom exactly as Joyce left it, down to the romance novel bookmarked on page 2047, and the coffee cup waiting by the bed. Margaret Chen gently suggests that preserving the room might not be healthy, but Kayla insists it stays untouched until Joyce returns. Support group sessions with counselor Nancy Williams help Kayla process what psychologists call Ambiguous loss. Grieving someone who isn't confirmed dead but cannot be found alive. The absence of closure creates unique psychological challenges that require specialized therapeutic approaches. Ambiguous loss is particularly difficult, Williams explains during one session, because there's no body to bury, no final goodbye, no clear end to hope. The mind struggles to process disappearance because it violates our understanding of how stories should conclude. Local news coverage diminishes to annual anniversary stories, though Joyce's case maintains presence in national databases and missing person websites. America's Most Wanted airs the Pine Bluff segment twice more, generating tips that investigators follow diligently but unsuccessfully. By 2010, Joyce Hall has become part of Pine Bluff's mythology, the woman who vanished without explanation, leaving behind questions that multiply with time. New residents learn her story from longtime locals, ensuring that her memory survives even as hope for resolution fades. The porch light continues burning every night, visible from Main Street like a lighthouse beacon calling ships that may never return to harbor. 2010-2015. Pine Bluff evolves as small Arkansas towns do, gradually with changes so subtle they're barely noticeable until viewed across years. Main Street businesses close and reopen under new ownership. Teenagers graduate and leave for college or jobs in Little Rock. Older residents pass away taking their memories with them. But through all these transformations, Joyce Hall's disappearance remains a constant, her story woven into the community's identity like a thread that cannot be removed without unraveling the whole fabric. The Dixie Diner changes hands in 2011, when longtime owner Bill Patterson retires to Florida. New ownership modernizes the interior, replacing the worn red vinyl booths with updated seating and installing a flat-screen television, where the old Wurlitzer jukebox once played Patsy Cline. Regular customers adapt to the changes while mourning the loss of atmosphere that connected them to Joyce's memory. Detective Lisa Park maintains Joyce Hall's case file with professional dedication, though new investigations demand most of her attention. She reviews the evidence annually, looking for details that previous investigators might have missed, hoping that advances in forensic science might reveal previously undetectable clues. The case file grows slowly, additional tips that lead nowhere, periodic reviews that find nothing new, technological analyses that confirm what investigators already know. Kayla Hall graduates from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff in 2012 with a degree in criminal justice and a minor in psychology. Her senior thesis examines long-term missing person cases, focusing on statistical patterns that might predict which disappearances will be solved and which will remain mysteries. Her academic advisor notes that her personal connection to the subject matter produces both exceptional insight and obvious pain. The graduation ceremony takes place on a bright May afternoon, with Kayla walking across the stage to receive her diploma while scanning the audience for a face that still isn't there. Margaret Chen applauds from the front row, her pride evident but tinged with sadness for the absence that defines every milestone in Kayla's life. After graduation, Kayla accepts a position with the Arkansas State Police Missing Persons Unit, her expertise enhanced by personal experience that provides unique perspective on family dynamics during prolonged investigations. Her colleagues quickly recognize her dedication and intuitive understanding of how disappearances affect communities, though they also notice the emotional distance she maintains from cases too similar to her own. The 5-year anniversary of Joyce's disappearance in 2012 passes with minimal media attention. Pine Bluff observes the date quietly, longtime residents sharing memories in private conversations, while newer community members learn the story secondhand. The candlelight vigil in Town Square draws 30 participants, down from previous years, but still representing the core group that refuses to forget. Technology advances during these years bring new possibilities to cold cases nationwide. DNA analysis becomes more sophisticated. Security camera systems improve. Social media provides new ways to disseminate information about missing persons. Detective Park ensures that Joyce Hall's case benefits from every technological advancement, submitting evidence for reanalysis whenever new techniques become available. 2013 brings tragedy to another Pine Bluff family when 16-year-old Brandon Torres disappears after a house party, creating parallels to Joyce's case that unsettle the community. The immediate response demonstrates lessons learned from Joyce's disappearance. Search teams organize faster, media coverage begins immediately, investigative resources deploy more efficiently. Brandon is found 3 days later alive but injured, having fallen into a ravine while walking home intoxicated. His recovery provides joy but also painful reminders of the resolution that Joyce's family never experienced. Margaret Chen observes changes in Kayla during these years. The young woman develops a harder exterior, professional competence that masks emotional vulnerability, and an intensity about her work that concerns those who care about her. The apartment above Gentry's pharmacy remains Kayla's legal address, though she spends most nights at her job in Little Rock, returning to Pine Bluff primarily for the ritual of lighting the porch candle. Local gossip evolves as years pass without resolution. Some residents develop theories about Joyce's fate. She ran away to start over. She was killed by someone who left town immediately. She witnessed something criminal and was silenced. Others insist she'll return someday with an explanation that makes sense of everything. The theories multiply without evidence, creating a mythology around Joyce Hall that sometimes obscures the actual woman she was. The Pine Bluff Library creates a local history section in 2014, including materials about significant community events. Joyce Hall's disappearance merits its own file, containing newspaper clippings, photographs, and documentation of the search efforts. Librarian Susan Martinez curates the collection carefully, ensuring accuracy while respecting the ongoing pain of family members. Tom Bradley continues operating his hardware store, though age forces him to hire help for tasks he once handled alone. He maintains a Joyce Hall missing person poster in his window, faded now but still visible to anyone who bothers to look. Customers occasionally ask about the poster, prompting Tom to share stories about the waitress, who remembered everyone's coffee preferences and never failed to ask about his grandson's baseball games. By 2015, Joyce Hall's case represents Pine Bluff's most enduring mystery, a puzzle that defines the community's character, while resisting every attempt at solution. 2015-2018. The digital revolution finally reaches Arkansas law enforcement in ways that transform cold case investigations statewide. Desktop computers become standard equipment in police departments, internet databases connect agencies across state lines, and forensic laboratories acquire capabilities that seemed like science fiction when Joyce Hall disappeared. Detective Lisa Park watches these advances with particular interest, knowing that technological breakthroughs often provide the keys to unlock mysteries that have defied conventional investigation into years. The Arkansas State Police establishes a cold case unit in 2016, equipped with modern analytical tools and specialists trained in advanced investigative techniques. Joyce Hall's case receives inclusion in their priority database, ensuring regular review by investigators who bring fresh perspectives unburdened by the emotional investment that can sometimes blind longtime investigators to new possibilities. DNA analysis undergoes revolutionary improvements during this period. What required blood samples and substantial evidence in 2007 can now be accomplished with microscopic traces of genetic material. More importantly, databases expand dramatically, as laws require DNA collection from broader categories of offenders. The Combined DNA Index System, TIDIS, grows from thousands to millions of profiles, increasing the possibility that evidence from Joyce's car might eventually match someone in the system. Detective Park resubmits every piece of physical evidence from Joyce Hall's case for reanalysis using updated techniques. Hair fibers found in the Honda Civic undergo mitochondrial DNA testing, previously unavailable to local law enforcement. Fingerprint evidence receives enhancement through digital processing that can reveal partial prints invisible to older methods. Even Joyce's clothing, preserved in evidence storage for 9 years, undergoes examination with equipment sensitive enough to detect trace DNA from skin cells. The results prove both encouraging and frustrating. Advanced testing confirms the presence of foreign DNA in Joyce's vehicle, genetic material that doesn't match Joyce, Kayla, or any known associates. The sample is partial and degraded, insufficient for immediate identification, but adequate for comparison if a suspect ever emerges. Detective Park enters the profile into every available database, knowing that somewhere in America, someone carries the matching genetic code. Genealogical DNA testing emerges as a powerful tool for cold case resolution during this period, though it remains expensive and time-intensive. Companies like 23andMe and Ancestry DNA create databases of consumers who voluntarily submit genetic samples for heritage analysis, unknowingly creating investigative resources that law enforcement can access through legal channels. Detective Park begins exploring genealogical DNA possibilities for Joyce's case in 2017, attending conferences and consulting with experts who explain how partial DNA profiles can be expanded through family tree analysis. The process requires patience, technical expertise, and financial resources that strain departmental budgets, but success stories from other states demonstrate the technique's potential for resolving decades-old mysteries. Kayla Hall, now 27 and working as a senior investigator with Arkansas State Police, maintains professional distance from her mother's case while staying informed about technological developments. Her colleagues respect her expertise while understanding the personal stakes that drive her professional excellence. She's become one of Arkansas's most effective missing persons investigators, though everyone recognizes that her ultimate goal remains solving the mystery that defined her adolescence. "Every case I work, I'm really working. Mom's case," she confides to Margaret Chen during one of her increasingly rare visits to Pine Bluff. "Every technique I learn, every advancement in the field, it all comes back to Highway 65 and that empty car." Social media provides new avenues for information sharing that didn't exist in 2007. Facebook groups dedicated to Arkansas missing persons accumulate thousands of members who share tips, theories, and updates about cold cases. Joyce Hall's disappearance maintains active discussion threads where amateur investigators propose theories and professional law enforcement personnel occasionally contribute official information. The Pine Bluff Police Department creates its first official social media presence in 2016, immediately posting Joyce Hall's missing person information to reach audiences that traditional media cannot access. The posts generate hundreds of shares and comments, though most responses offer sympathy rather than actionable intelligence. Digital mapping technology allows investigators to analyze Joyce's disappearance with precision impossible. Geographic Information Systems, GIS, can model her route home, calculate timing based on traffic patterns, and identify potential locations where her car might have been forced off the road. Cell phone tower analysis, though retrospective, provides data about coverage areas and dead zones that might explain why Joyce's phone went silent. The 10-year anniversary of Joyce's disappearance in November 2017 receives renewed media attention thanks to social media amplification and public interest in cold cases fueled by successful podcasts and documentary series. ABC News produces a segment for 2020 that introduces Joyce's story to national audiences, generating hundreds of tips that investigators dutifully follow despite low expectations for breakthrough information. Detective Park coordinates with federal agents to re-examine the possibility that Joyce's disappearance connects to other missing person cases in Arkansas or neighboring states. Computer databases make pattern analysis possible in ways that manual record-keeping never allowed, revealing potential links between cases separated by geography and time. By 2018, technology has provided new tools for investigating Joyce Hall's disappearance, but the fundamental mystery remains unsolved, waiting for the right combination of evidence, technique, and perhaps luck to finally yield answers. March 2024, the Arkansas State Police Crime Laboratory in Little Rock hums with the quiet efficiency of advanced forensic science, its climate-controlled rooms filled with equipment that would have seemed miraculous to investigators searching for Joyce Hall 17 years earlier. In Laboratory Suite C, forensic geneticist Dr. Sarah Mitchell examines computer screens displaying the complex family trees that genealogical DNA analysis can construct from microscopic evidence samples. "We've got something," Dr. Mitchell announces to Detective Lisa Park, who has driven down from Pine Bluff for what she hopes might finally be a breakthrough meeting. The partial DNA profile recovered from Joyce Hall's Honda Civic has undergone the most advanced analysis available, combined with genetic genealogy techniques that have revolutionized cold case investigations nationwide. The process began 6 months earlier, when Detective Park secured funding for advanced genealogical DNA testing through a federal grant program specifically designed for cold cases. The degraded DNA sample from Joyce's car, too partial for traditional identification, underwent specialized processing that created a genetic profile suitable for family tree analysis. Dr. Mitchell's team uploaded the genetic data to genealogy databases containing millions of consumer profiles, searching for relatives who share enough DNA markers to establish family connections. The process requires painstaking analysis of inheritance patterns, geographic data, and historical records to construct family trees that might lead to potential suspects. The profile indicates a male subject, Dr. Mitchell explains, pointing to chromosomal markers on her computer screen. "We've identified several potential family lines, but one tree shows promising geographical connections to Jefferson County during the relevant time period." The family tree analysis reveals a cluster of relatives in Arkansas and surrounding states, with DNA markers indicating relationship levels from first cousins to more distant connections. Traditional genealogical research combines with genetic data to identify individuals who lived in or near Pine Bluff in 2007, creating a suspect pool that investigators can evaluate through conventional methods. Detective Park studies the family tree displayed on the laboratory's large monitor, her excitement tempered by years of disappointment with promising leads that ultimately failed to produce results. But this feels different, more scientific, more precise, based on genetic evidence rather than witness testimony or circumstantial connections. "How confident are we in these identifications?" Park asks, her professional skepticism competing with hope that has sustained her through 7 years of managing Joyce Hall's case. "The genetic connections are solid," Dr. Mitchell responds. "But remember, this DNA could have been deposited innocently through casual contact, secondary transfer, or contamination. We need additional evidence to establish relevance to the disappearance." The genealogical analysis identifies 3 men who could have contributed the DNA found in Joyce's car. 2 lived in Little Rock in 2007, with no apparent connection to Pine Bluff. The third, however, presents a profile that makes Detective Park's pulse quicken. Robert Allen Crawford, 51 years old in 2007, employed as a maintenance supervisor at the paper mill where many Dixie Diner customers work. Crawford's employment records show he regularly worked night shifts that ended at 10:30 p.m., potentially placing him on Joyce's road home. More significantly, he lived on Highway 65, just 3 miles from where Joyce's car was discovered. Property records indicate he owned a dark-colored pickup truck, matching the partially visible vehicle in the diner's security footage. "This is our guy," Detective Park tells Dr. Mitchell, though she maintains professional caution. "Everything fits: location, timing, vehicle type, DNA evidence, but we need more than genealogical analysis to build a case." Investigation into Crawford's background reveals a pattern of concerning behavior that investigators missed in 2007, 2 domestic violence calls to his residence in 2005 and 2006, though charges were never filed. A protective order filed by an ex-girlfriend in 2009, citing stalking behavior. A reputation among coworkers as someone with anger management issues and inappropriate comments about women. Most significantly, records show Crawford left Arkansas suddenly in January 2008, selling his property and moving to Texas, where he has lived under a slightly modified name, Rob A. Crawford instead of Robert Allen Crawford. The timing of his departure, just 2 months after Joyce's disappearance, seems beyond coincidental. Detective Park begins building a comprehensive case file on Crawford, coordinating with Texas law enforcement to conduct surveillance and gather additional evidence. The investigation must proceed carefully, Premature contact could prompt Crawford to flee again or destroy evidence that might still exist after 17 years. We're going to bring him back to Arkansas for questioning, Park informs her supervisor, Lieutenant Colonel James Washington. But first I want to know everything about Robert Crawford's life, from the day Joyce Hall disappeared until right now. The genealogical DNA breakthrough represents the first major development in Joyce Hall's case since 2007, but Detective Park knows from experience that identification is only the beginning. Building a prosecutable case requires evidence beyond genetic connections, witness testimony, and probably confession from someone who has kept his secret for 17 years. As she drives back to Pine Bluff, Detective Park calls Kayla Hall with news that might finally provide answers to the question that has defined both their careers. What happened to Joyce Hall on that November night 17 years ago? April 15, 2024, dawn breaks clear and cold over Houston, Texas, as a joint task force of Arkansas State Police and Harris County Sheriff's deputies surrounds a modest duplex in the Acres Homes neighborhood. Detective Lisa Park stands behind an unmarked vehicle, watching the coordinated operation that represents the culmination of 17 years of investigation into Joyce Hall's disappearance. Robert Allen Crawford, now 68 years old, emerges from his front door at 6:47 a.m., as he has every morning for the past decade, carrying a coffee mug and walking toward his pickup truck. He's grayer now, heavier, moving with the careful gait of someone whose body carries the weight of age and secrets. But Detective Park recognizes him immediately from photographs, the man who worked night shifts at Pine Bluff's paper mill, who lived on Highway 65, whose DNA was found in Joyce Hall's abandoned Honda Civic. Robert Crawford, Arkansas State Police, Detective Park announces, her voice cutting through the humid Houston morning air. You're under arrest for the kidnapping and murder of Joyce Hall. Crawford's reaction tells Detective Park everything she needs to know about his guilt. His coffee mug slips from his hands, shattering on the concrete driveway as his face drains of color. For 17 years, he's lived knowing this moment might come, and now it has arrived with the inevitability of sunrise. I want a lawyer, Crawford says immediately, but his voice carries defeat rather than defiance. He knows that modern forensic science has finally caught up with crimes committed in simpler times, when DNA evidence seemed like something from television rather than courtroom reality. The arrest culminates months of careful investigation following the genealogical DNA breakthrough. Detective Park and her team built a comprehensive case file on Crawford's movements in November 2007, his departure from Arkansas 2 months later, and his subsequent life in Texas under a slightly modified identity. Additional evidence emerged through the investigation that strengthened the case beyond genetic connections. Crawford's ex-girlfriend from 2009 provided statements about his violent tendencies and inappropriate comments about women, particularly waitresses and service workers. Co-workers from the paper mill remembered his habit of stopping at the Dixie Diner during shift changes, his particular attention to Joyce Hall, and his sudden departure from Arkansas without explanation. Most damaging to Crawford's defense, surveillance of his Houston residence revealed that he kept newspaper clippings about Joyce Hall's disappearance stored in a shoebox in his bedroom closet along with photographs of the Dixie Diner and maps of Jefferson County. The evidence suggests obsession that continued long after he left Arkansas, compulsive behavior that connects him psychologically to the crime. The extradition process moves swiftly, Crawford's attorney advising cooperation rather than fighting transfer to Arkansas. Within 72 hours, he sits in the Jefferson County Jail where he first should have been placed 17 years earlier, awaiting arraignment on charges of kidnapping, murder, and tampering with evidence. Detective Park conducts the initial interview at Pine Bluff Police Department headquarters, the same building where Joyce Hall's missing person report was first filed in November. Crawford sits across the metal table in the interview room, his hands cuffed, his eyes avoiding direct contact as Park reviews the evidence that led to his arrest. The DNA evidence places you in Joyce Hall's car, Park begins, her voice steady despite the emotional significance of this moment. Your employment records show you worked night shifts that ended 30 minutes before Joyce disappeared. Your residence was 3 miles from where her car was found. Your vehicle matches the description of the truck seen in the diner's parking lot that night. Crawford remained silent, his attorney having advised him to provide no statement until plea negotiations begin. But his body language, slumped shoulders, rapid breathing, nervous fidgeting, suggests someone carrying the weight of 17 years of hidden guilt. The booking process reveals additional evidence that investigators didn't expect to find. Crawford's wallet contains a faded photograph of Joyce Hall serving coffee at the Dixie Diner, apparently taken without her knowledge from across the restaurant. The discovery suggests premeditation and stalking behavior that transforms the case from potential crime of opportunity to calculated predation. News of Crawford's arrest spreads through Pine Bluff within hours, creating the kind of community reaction that small towns experience when long-held mysteries finally approach resolution. The Dixie Diner fills with residents sharing memories of Joyce and expressing relief that her disappearance might finally be explained. Church bells ring throughout the afternoon, Pastor Williams leading prayers of thanksgiving for answers and justice. Kayla Hall receives notification of the arrest while working at Arkansas State Police Headquarters in Little Rock. At 33 years old, she has spent more than half her life waiting for this phone call, dedicating her career to finding missing persons in honor of the mother she never found. "We got him," Detective Park tells her simply. "Robert Crawford is in custody, and we're going to make sure he never hurts anyone else." For the first time in 17 years, the porch light at the apartment above Gentry's Pharmacy might finally be turned off. Trial and Justice. September 20. The Jefferson County Courthouse in Pine Bluff becomes the center of Arkansas's most closely watched criminal trial in decades. Media trucks line the street outside the imposing brick building, their satellite dishes pointed skyward like mechanical flowers seeking sunlight. Inside, Circuit Judge Patricia Martinez presides over proceedings that will finally determine what happened to Joyce Hall on that November night, 17 years ago. Prosecutor David Thompson, Jefferson County's district attorney, presents the state's case with methodical precision that builds systematically toward an inevitable conclusion. The evidence against Robert Allen Crawford has grown stronger during the months since his arrest. Additional investigation revealing details that paint a picture of obsession, stalking, and ultimately murder. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Thompson begins his opening statement, "this case is about a predator who stalked an innocent woman, a devoted mother who was simply trying to make an honest living to support her teenage daughter. The defendant observed Joyce Hall's routines, learned her schedule, and waited for the perfect opportunity to commit an unspeakable crime. The prosecution's case unfolds through witness testimony, forensic evidence, and circumstantial connections that create a comprehensive narrative of Crawford's guilt. Sarah Mitchell explains genealogical DNA analysis to jurors who struggle with scientific concepts that didn't exist when most of them attended school, her testimony making complex genetic evidence accessible to ordinary citizens. Crawford's employment records at the paper mill establish his presence in Pine Bluff during the relevant time period, and his knowledge of Joyce's schedule through regular visits to the Dixie Diner. Co-workers testify about his inappropriate comments regarding female employees and customers, his particular attention to Joyce Hall, and his sudden departure from Arkansas without explanation in early. The most dramatic testimony comes from Crawford's ex-girlfriend, Maria Santos, who describes his violent tendencies and obsessive behavior during their brief relationship in Texas. Santos recalls Crawford talking about unfinished business in Arkansas and maintaining newspaper clippings about missing persons cases, behavior that seemed strange at the time but makes sense in retrospect. "He would get angry when I asked about his past," Santos testifies, her voice steady despite obvious emotional difficulty. "He said there were things he'd done that nobody would understand, mistakes that he couldn't take back. I thought he meant divorce or financial problems. I never imagined it was murder." Defense attorney Marcus Williams faces the impossible task of creating reasonable doubt when DNA evidence places his client in the victim's vehicle. His strategy focuses on challenging the reliability of genealogical DNA analysis and suggesting alternative explanations for Crawford's presence in Joyce's car. Perhaps he offered assistance when she had car trouble, Perhaps the DNA transfer occurred through innocent contact at the diner. The prosecution wants you to believe that genetic evidence tells the whole story, Williams argues during his opening statement. But DNA doesn't reveal intent, it doesn't establish timeline, and it certainly doesn't prove murder. My client may have encountered Joyce Hall that night, but that doesn't make him responsible for her disappearance. The defense strategy collapses when prosecutors present evidence discovered during Crawford's arrest. The photographs of Joyce taken without her knowledge, the maps of Jefferson County, the newspaper clippings about her disappearance maintained for 17 years. The evidence suggests obsession that continued long after Crawford left Arkansas. Compulsive behavior that undermines any claim of innocent contact. Crawford himself never testifies, his attorney recognizing that cross-examination would expose inconsistencies in any story he might tell. Instead, the defense attempts to create doubt about the timeline, suggesting that Joyce might have disappeared later that evening through contact with someone else entirely. The prosecution's final witness is Kayla Hall, now 33 years old, and an experienced law enforcement professional who provides victim impact testimony that transforms legal proceedings into human tragedy. Her composure remains professional despite obvious emotional stress, as she describes 17 years of unanswered questions, delayed grief, and the impact of her mother's disappearance on every aspect of her life. My mother was everything to me, Kayla testifies, her voice carrying across the packed courtroom. She worked double shifts to pay for my school clothes. She never missed a parent-teacher conference. She promised to help me shop for my winter formal dress. The defendant didn't just take her life, he stole my childhood, my graduation, my wedding day, every moment when a daughter needs her mother. Jury deliberation takes less than 4 hours. The forewoman, a retired teacher who remembers reading about Joyce's disappearance in 2007, announces the verdict with the solemnity that such moments require. We find the defendant, Robert Allen Crawford, guilty of murder in the first degree, guilty of kidnapping, and guilty of tampering with evidence. Judge Martinez sentences Crawford to life in prison without possibility of parole, her words carrying the weight of community justice finally achieved. Mr. Crawford, your actions 17 years ago destroyed a family and terrorized a community. While we cannot bring Joyce Hall back to her daughter, we can ensure that you never harm another innocent person. As court officers lead Crawford away in shackles, Pine Bluff finally begins the process of healing from its longest-running nightmare. October 2024, Pine Bluff awakens to its first morning in 17 years knowing that Joyce Hall's killer faces justice. The autumn air carries familiar scents, burning leaves, fresh coffee from the Dixie Diner, the promise of winter's approach, but something fundamental has changed in the community's atmosphere. The oppressive weight of unanswered questions has lifted, replaced by the bittersweet relief that comes with truth finally revealed. Kayla Hall stands in the apartment above Gentry's Pharmacy, her hand resting on the light switch that has glowed continuously since November 15. At 33, she's older now than her mother was when she disappeared, her life shaped by loss but defined by purpose. The criminal justice career that began as a quest for answers has evolved into a calling that honors Joyce's memory through service to other families facing similar tragedies. It's time, Kayla whispers to the empty room, and turns off the porch light for the first time in 17 years. The Joyce Hall case demonstrates how persistence, advancing technology, and community support can eventually overcome even the most challenging mysteries. Crawford's conviction provides closure for Pine Bluff, but it also serves as a reminder that justice delayed is not necessarily justice denied. Modern forensic techniques continue evolving, offering hope to families whose loved ones disappeared in earlier eras when evidence collection was limited and databases were small. Detective Lisa Park, now promoted to Chief of Detectives, uses the Joyce Hall case as training material for new investigators, emphasizing the importance of preserving evidence and maintaining hope even when cases seem impossible to solve. Every cold case is someone's mother, daughter, or sister, she tells recruits. They deserve our best efforts, no matter how much time has passed. Pine Bluff remembers Joyce Hall not as a victim, but as a devoted mother whose love transcended death and whose story reminds us that some lights continue burning even in the darkest times.